Hi, welcome, good evening. Welcome to Schooling at Home. Now, of course, when we talk about schooling at home, we're talking about an online parent Q&A forum. And Schooling at Home is a free online live chat help session streamed on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 9 p.m., giving parents the opportunity to ask questions that will help support children in their learning at home. Now, whether you're supporting full time studies due to COVID-19 restrictions or you have questions about how to support learning during homework and study time, this platform provides practical help for parents when they're supporting studying at home. Now, tonight, we are taking time to talk about reading skills and the best ways to improve reading skills. So, even before we jump in with parents and so on, just to share with those of you who are listening, a raw baseline that we want to make sure parents understand is that when we talk about reading skills, we're not just talking about the ability to read fluently, meaning can the child just pick up the book and rattle it off. Reading skills is much more than that. And the baseline of reading skills is not that fluency, but rather the baseline of reading skills starts with your phonemic awareness. You want to be aware of the extent to which a child has built vocabulary and is working on that word building, whatever list you want to use. And of course, we have some educators in the background that's going to be sharing about these word building and vocabulary lists and so on. So I'm gonna leave it to them to jump in. But we want to be aware of those word lists. And of course, you want to pay attention to comprehension skills, because if your child is reading and does not understand what he or she is reading, then it makes it difficult to be fluent and to manipulate and really work with the information within the passage. And then thereafter, we're definitely going to get to reading skills. So tonight, we're having a well-rounded conversation, because here it is, not only do we want you as parents to be equipped to understand how to support your children, but we definitely want to take time to help you understand what supporting your children involves, and really looking at what are your child's challenges. And we touched on this, I think it was 2 weeks ago. One of the questions pertained to reading skills, but tonight I'm really excited that we're able to take the entire session and just really focusing on reading skills, with the hope that you're going to really be able to take the information and use it. So I want to start off tonight by taking a focus on phonics and phonemic awareness. And I want to invite Ms. Hari Prasad. Ms. Hari Prasad is an educator, and she works with infants and lower primary students. She specializes working with infants and lower primary students. And I am very aware of her track record in being able to have students who are experiencing severe reading challenges and being able to work with them over the course of time to be able to help them be able to move forward. So let's welcome Miss Hari Prasad. Miss H, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you
Okay,
for
great.
having me
Thanks
here
for
today.
jumping on board tonight. Yes, happy to have you. So, Miss, I want to kind of give the floor over to you. Can you share with parents some information that says this is what you should know when you're dealing with, let's say, the pre-K child or the child now going into first year, and they want to introduce sounds, blends, and start introducing these phonics based concepts? What should parents understand, and what can they do at home with their kids to better help their kids? Can you share a bit on that, please?
Sure. So basically, the before going to having your child engage in reading, your child needs to know the foundation of reading. Now, the foundation of reading will be the letter sounds and letter identification and blends and stuff like that. You cannot go on by teaching your child sight words. You have to go and teach your child basic foundation first. It is very important to get that grip of the foundation level of reading first.
Okay, great, thanks. And so, even as parents need to understand that they need to get into the foundation, could you sort of help them understand maybe what sort of material they could look for and how they could help introduce this foundation to the kids while at home?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. I was asking, you mentioned it's important for parents to know the foundation. The kids need to know the foundation. They can't just jump into sight words
The
and so
side
on.
words.
So where do they, what kind of material are parents supposed to look for, and how do they introduce this to children at home?
Okay, well, simple things as the alphabet chart could work with identifying letters. Nowadays, technology come in really hand with sourcing YouTube videos and getting letter sounds and stuff like that. When you are teaching your child letter sounds and vowel letters and stuff like that, you could use hands motion. Now, hands motion will be used for when the child doesn't know how to identify the letters as yet, but when you show them the hand movement or the hand motion, they'll be able to identify that quickly by just looking at the motion that you show the child. So hand motion comes really handy on YouTube and any sort of um app like phonics app and stuff like that. I cannot recall any right now, but there are a lot out there that you could use and depend on and get the
So just
support.
to make sure, Miss H, when you're talking about hand motion, do you mean literally like doing
No.
those things? Because I'm sure
No.
there are parents who are watching and they're like, what hand movement? What hand motion is
Okay.
someone talking about? Do you mean like tracing letters with your finger? What?
No, no. So sorry. So basically, each letter will be represented by a hand movement. Like for example, and I'm not sure if you see my hand.
Yes, I can see your
Yeah,
hand.
right? Right. So this here represents a. Yeah, a, right? As an apple. Now, when you want to teach you sound a, you use this as a, a, and the child will know that this motion represents a. Now, this is our next example too. Let's use for example, blending of words, pat, right? So I'm going to use my fingers and demonstrate to you guys how it can be done. So we have p, a, t. So we have p, a, t. Now, if you ask the child, what sound is this? The child will say ah. If you ask the child to
Mm.
identify which letter is this, the child will say short A. So this is
Mm-hmm.
a really great technique to help your child with identifying letters and letter sounds and stuff like that.
Understand. Okay,
Like,
so mummies and daddies, we're not talking about doing that, but what we're talking about. No, it's really important because there really might be parents thinking,
yeah.
okay, do letter B, do letter C. So what we're talking about is creating a signal for the child that causes them to have a visual association with the sounds that they're making. Yeah?
Yeah,
So that's we
that's
say
right.
per at, and we take
Yeah.
it from there. Awesome.
Yes.
Is there any other tip you want to mention at this time, Miss Hariprasad? When it comes to encouraging parents, how they could work with little things they could do at home to work with their kids to introduce phonics and so on, aside from just putting them to sit in front of a screen, but actually sitting and working with your child.
Um, read aloud could be our next important strategy when it comes to like the pre-K. That's like just preschool around there.
Yes.
Yeah. So because if this child is now going at preschool, then may or may not the child may not know the alphabet sound as yet. So you could model the sounds of the child and show the child how to say it, what to say. Besides using videos and stuff, it will help build a connection between the parents and the child as well too. So yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you. So
welcome.
we started by talking and saying that when we're developing reading skills, we want to be able to identify and make sure that the baseline is set. We want to make sure they could identify their letters, they could sound their letters, they could put their letters together with blends. And depending on the level of the child, we want to make sure we could get into breaking up words, into syllables, and we take it from one step to another. Now, as we go along, the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure we're introducing um, age level and stage appropriate level words. So I want to just bring Miss Mohipat on. She's also an educator, so that she could share a bit of information about us in terms of what parents can consider when introducing word building and vocabulary development with especially younger children. Hi, Miss. How are you?
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course. What can you share with our moms and dads who will be listening to help them understand in terms of what they should know about introducing new words, word building, that kind of thing?
Now, when it comes to reading, it's very important that we understand the basics before we could move to the next step. And for our younger children, according in the primary school, they had developed certain storybooks that are designed for their level. Now, when you're introducing new words, as Ms. Haripasad mentioned, we have to ensure that the child understands the concept of the sound. Because if a cool trick is once they could sound a word and put it back together, individual letters, put it to combine it together. Once they have done that, even a word that they have not met before, it becomes simpler on their part to figure out the word while reading. So sounding is very, very important. So for example, if a child does not understand the sound of a long and a short sound in one letter, it becomes difficult when it's time to pronunciate. And as parents and even educators, it is important to pick the right level or the right stage of storybooks for children. And let me say for infants, let me give a practical example. You start off with one word at a time. And once, like if you did look at these stories in stage one in any of these storybooks that they require for you to buy in the primary school, they start off with a image and a picture. So once the child could match the image with the word, that also helps. So it's not just the sound alone. Once they could connect what they're seeing and the sounds together, they have already started making progress. And we have storybooks for each level. And they developed something called the Jollyphonic series that it is designed from simple to complex depending on which level the child is at. And I think sometimes when it comes to reading, it can be a little frustrating when we have taught a child a concept and they have not fully understood it. But I think we need sometimes for children, they need pattern and they need routine. So once they understand the pattern and the routine that you have set for them in a schedule, it becomes much simpler for them to identify, okay, this is an R and this is the sound an R makes. And I know we have to be repetitive so they could remember the concept, because remember they're now grasping something new.
Yeah, thanks. I want to bring back Miss Harry Prasad into the conversation for a minute. And my question is, so we are talking from the educator's point of view, but I'm trying to imagine a parent saying, you know, how much years I do this, I do remember these things. I do remember long
Yeah.
sound and short sound, and how am I supposed to do all this with my child? So, for the parent who is listening and is beginning to feel very overwhelmed, whether they're listening live or they're tapping into the replay, how could parents, and it's an open question, how can parents prepare themselves to support their children at home, especially parents who feel like, hey, I have been out of this for so long, I don't remember any of these things. How can parent, any tips that any of you could provide?
Well, what I could suggest is that parents could probably have an area in their home to facilitate learning, right? But at the same time, you want to look at uh, um someone who has experience then. So probably you could probably look for like reading programs online, or like a schedule or a breakdown on the basics on how what the child is supposed to know. So for example, milestones might come in handy where the child will, well, that's like goals where what the child is supposed to know at their his or her age. So what parents could do is look at that and see exactly what the child needs to know and use that as a guide to help them build their way through. And also they could reference to some sort of guidance, like for example, reading programs in specific schools and stuff like that, and register the child to get the support and talk to the teacher, whoever is teaching the child, as to how he or she may, he or she, oh, sorry, how he or
That's fine.
she may be able to help the child at home. So yeah,
Okay, but
that's
of
my
course we
suggestion.
know, and Miss Mohipat will come to you in a minute. But of course we know that
Yeah.
in post-COVID time, so the
Yes,
way
that's right.
able to access support is a little different now compared to the way we
No,
access
yes.
support in times gone by. It's a lot more limited with institutions
Hmm.
being physically closed. Not all parents are able to access classes online. So then, when we
Mhm.
begin to look at the preparation of the parent to support the child at home, where do parents find resources? Are there particular types of sites? Are there particular kinds of books? Like, how do parents navigate
Hmm.
through this? Either
Okay.
you or Miss Mohipad, anybody could respond.
Well,
Um,
there are there are sites that parents could use, and there are programs parents could use. They could actually purchase.
mhm.
You know, there are the JJ and Friends, and the, I know there are a
Yes.
few number of reading programs that they could actually buy online and use at home with a child, other than seeking help from the outside.
Right. Miss Mohipat, any
Yeah.
contributions to make on this?
Um, Yes, I have actually, I have younger siblings, and sometimes the physical storybooks that we have, they tend to read it out. So what I've discovered is I started writing online on YouTube certain stories, and there are people who they have the video where they read aloud, where they are reading to the child, and you see the pictures and everything like a regular story. Also, I think if in reference to the first question, with parents not knowing how to navigate, I think it would be very wise for them to familiarize themselves with the curriculum and the level the
Mm.
child is at. So it is
Mhm.
a there's a very big breakdown. So when it becomes overwhelmed, there are certain parts to show you how to teach, and even they suggest some ideas and resources. So that should kind of help the burden a bit. So there's the online help, and for the children who parents who can't afford to have the online services, what I could simply say, parents writing a little passage for a child in infants is not really hard. You could write something really simple, a few sentences, and you with a nice little picture, and they could read. So for parents who can't afford the online, it could still have the learning taking place at home.
I understand. So even before we go into the other sections, we've talked about phonemic awareness, phonics, we've talked about word building. I'm just going to put you all in the background, and we have a parent in with us, and I want to be able to add um, Chanel in. Chanel, okay, how do you do that? So we're here. So you're a parent of young children, so this
Okay.
conversation is very relevant to you and your children. My question to you is, when you think about your own children and their responses to reading, and you listen to what the educators we have on the show tonight is sharing, um, what comments can you give when you compare how that works for you, and what questions do you have when it comes to introducing phonics and supporting word building? Can you share a bit on that with us?
Well, for me, I have three kids, and they are three different stages. Obviously, I have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and 8-year-old, and each one of them obviously have to upgrade the level of reading with them. For the younger ones, the foundation is a bit using the Jolly Phonics was very helpful for me
Right.
in terms of breaking down, getting that phonemic awareness, because for the beginners they have signs how to use. It wouldn't be the same as what Miss Harper would have shared with us, but they would have shown us like use ants, and you pretend ants is crawling on you. So those that kind of foundation kind of help them get them interested. It's interactive, it's fun.
Right.
Um, so and then I continue with the Jolly Phonics for the different stage for my 6-year-old at seasons to the second year as well. Getting support, getting him involved in our reading program, also give him that foundation and structure where I, as a parent, may not be able to reach them because children kind of, kind of push away at times with a parent. So, being able to connect with our educator to sit down and give them that individual attention also builds on that skill set.
Because if I remember correctly, your eldest son was with VLC, right?
Yes.
With the reading program. How was that time, your observation of that time for him being enrolled in the Saturday reading class at Victoria Literacy Center in being able to support his reading? What was your observation on that? Because I know you mentioned Jolly Phonics, but then you say sometimes you need external help. So how was your time with
Yeah.
Victoria Literacy in supporting your son with his reading skills development?
Well, that was for my second son actually. With
Oh, okay,
him,
okay, okay.
yes.
I'm
So
mixing
with
up
6-year-old,
sons.
it
Forgive
built.
me.
So with him, it built a lot of confidence too, because getting that one-on-one attention, knowing that he was able, because the teacher would have been able to break down the work for him. Um, as compared to the public school system, they would not be able to do it because they have a wide, of 25 students per class. So they won't be able to give that individual attention to the child to get them where they need to be, to help them individually to, things. So they will do things more in a group session. So getting that one-on-one time with a tutor kind of helped him build on his confidence. So now he's a bit clearer, a very much clearer. There's still some work to be done, but that's reinforcement. And due to COVID, there's
Right.
you're limited to much resources. But as places are opening up, I guess getting more books and those sort of things kind of help in
Would be
that
able to
category.
support. I
Yeah.
understand. Thanks, Mummy. I'm just going to put you in the background for a minute. So, of course, for the evening, we've spoken so far in terms of developing reading skills. We've talked about the importance of phonics and building that phonemic awareness. We've talked about word building and vocabulary development for children. So now we want to get a bit into the importance of comprehension skills and how comprehension skills impacts reading. Miss Hari Prasad, I want to pull you back to the forefront of the conversation. What can you share with us about reading comprehension and its impact on reading skills?
Well, basically, reading comprehension and reading skills, there are a similarity, meaning that in order to do the comprehension, you need to read the comprehension. So when you read the comprehension and you understand what you read, then you'll be able to answer the questions. But then if you don't understand what you read, then there's where the difficulty and challenges will come in. So um, with what I could say from the top of my head is that reading comprehension and reading itself plays an important role.
Yeah, definitely. So, Miss Mohipa, just pulling it in really quickly with the conversation there. Um, how do you recommend, and again, an open question, parents be supportive of their children in developing their comprehension skills?
I think the first step in developing the comprehension skills is first of all, letting a child know it's okay if you have read the passage the first time and you didn't understand. You can reread it. And what I like to do is when I'm reading, and it's good for children, you can underline the important ideas that you see in the story. So when you go back to the question and see what the question is asking, you know directly where you're going. So sometimes you need to reread something to fully understand. So ensuring that they understand it's okay. Okay, the first time I read, I didn't understand this sentence. Let me read it again and see, and again until the concept is understood. Because if you don't understand the concept, we cannot go forward.
Okay.
It's like a stumbling block.
So the baseline of your recommendation is to remind parents that repetition is key in supporting the reading comprehension skills. Miss H, any recommendation, sorry, to parents as it pertains to supporting the comprehension skill development at home?
Well, regarding what Miss Mohipat had mentioned, with the reinforcement and stuff like that, that will come in handy together with showing your child how to answer a question and
Mm,
finding that keyword as to what the question is asking about. So if it
right.
is, yeah, so if it is a child don't know or don't understand what the question is asking him or her, then the child will not be able to answer that question. So
Mm.
um what I would recommend is teaching your child how to locate keywords in the passage based on
Oh,
what the question asks to find.
okay, I understand. I just want to add back Mommy Chanel to the conversation. Chanel, when you think about your time at home with your child or your kids, because you have two, at least two of them now at age where they may be dealing with comprehension passages and so on, do you experience challenges with them at home getting the reading comprehension done?
Yes, at times, because dependent on what what it is, like the type of passage, like for the 6-year-old, they will use pictures and so forth instead of reading itself. So when they
Mm,
give you pictures, they have to determine what the story is going to tell, tell what the story is telling you. So there's no right or wrong way to particularly answer because it's your interpretation of what the story is going to be. So it kind of get tricky dependent. So if the reading comes in and they don't understand what is being said, as Miss Harper said and Miss Mohipat would have indicated, if they don't understand, then it's kind of harder for them to get to that point. And I would have to come in and say, okay, let's read over, let's try it this way, understand it this way. This is what the passage is really about, and give them a kind of prelude to the story
so Miss
to be
Harprasad,
able to assist them to answer the
as
question.
okay, yeah. So Miss Harprasad, as Chanel is mentioning, like when she works with her child at home, one of the challenges she notices is when these passages are based on pictures, it feels as though there's no right or wrong answer. But what advice can you give that parents could use to direct their children at home when they're dealing with that kind of comprehension passage that is just kind of based on pictures?
Okay, so we all know pictures demonstrate a whole different set of meaning, right? So when a child look at a picture, he or she may be able to see something from his or her own perspective. So whatever he or she, well, Chanel's son, whatever he is seeing, he will mention it. He will write that. He will say that. But he would not know if that is the correct answer or not. So that is where guidance will come in, where Chanel will have to have discussion based on the picture with her son. So
Mm-hmm.
when you have discussion with him, you helping him understand exactly and building his communication skills and comprehension skills. So discussion is very important.
All right. Ms. Mohipa, do you have any contributions to make in this regard?
I have one small tip. I heard mommy saying that when the passage becomes difficult, she comes and she gives them a prelude of what it is. I would just like to give one recommendation. When they have read the story, I think you should implement the strategy of asking your sons, what do you think this story is about? And let's hear what they say, and from there we'll be able to build on it. So we could have what they are saying and you could add, so it wouldn't feel like, mommy coming to tell me what the story about and I think this is what it's about. So we have the two ideas coming together. So when you hear what their intake is together with yours, it will be a little bit easier in the understanding of what the story is about.
Yes, because of course we want to keep in mind that
Yeah.
it really comes down to prior exposure. If your child has never seen something before, not been exposed to it before, he or she would not be able to look at a picture and determine the range of meanings that can be inferred from that picture. But this is why
Mhm.
working with your child is so important. I'm not necessarily directing it at you, Chanel. I'm just, really speaking. This is why it's important for parents to actually work with their children and not just hand them over to a program or hand them over to the DVD or the YouTube channel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we want to do is while the child is at home, similar to what should be happening in school, we want to take understand where this child is at in his or her understanding. To what extent has he or she been exposed? To what extent is the understanding developed that they're familiar, they know, they understand, they've learned before? And because remember, learning is not just about what you read in a textbook. Reading comes down in very simple lines. So we're driving to go to the market and we see the cow on the side of the road in the bush and we say cow. And then the child says cow. And then the next animal is a horse and the child says cow. Because why? The frame of reference is the that shape out in the bush is cow. So now we have to bring differentiation. Well, no, that one was the cow. This one is the horse. And we
Yeah.
start building understanding. We start building the
Yeah.
knowledge. And so it's not always
Yeah.
about the book and picking up the book and opening the book or putting on the video, but it's about using everyday life to create understanding that when something happens in the home,
Yeah.
hi honey, what happened here? Why do you think the glass fell off the table? So if you had moved the
Yes.
glass, what do you think might have happened? So what do you think we should do next time? Instead of saying, I tell you, if we have conversations, not only do we build understanding in our children, not only do we encourage our kids to learn appropriate communication, but we build their ability to improve in their comprehension skills. Because what
Yeah.
we do, we help them to identify the problem, we help them to understand what are
Yeah.
the contributing factors to the problem. We help them to learn
Mm-hmm.
problem solving. Just because we had a conversation
Hmm.
when the cup fell off the table
Yeah.
and the juice fall on the ground. And then we teach responsibility when we help them clean it up. So life is a beautiful thing. We get to go full
Yes.
circle with it. So back to your original point, Chanel, it really is about continuing to work with your child, because as parents, we want to make sure we understand to what extent does my child know about this, know about that, understand. So where we see gaps, where you see gaps in their understanding, is not to become discouraged, but to understand, oh, this is how I could improve. This is how I could contribute. This is how I could add information so the child could
Yeah.
be better and more well-rounded and so on. Yeah. Um, and of course, not last but certainly not least, once we've gone through those phases, it usually makes reading fluency so much easier. And
Mm-hmm.
where we're able to jump in, we get into the passage, we're able to flow. And of course, even as Miss Mohipat was mentioning, the repetition of it all becomes helpful. So therefore, we want to have a daily routine. Ultimately, the best case scenario is to have a daily reading routine. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's 5 minutes, because
Hmm.
that's all you have, 5 minutes, better than no minutes. Have a daily reading routine. And you know what I would
Hmm.
say? Don't make reading a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting.
Oh,
A lot of parents
yes.
make reading and schoolwork a punishment, but then 2 years later, we expect children to love reading because it's your time to do the work. It doesn't quite work that way. It's not, here, do this, I would send you to read a book. No, you're smiling. Do you do
Yeah.
that, Chanel? don't know. If it is we make reading a punishment, we could never expect children to grow a natural love and a natural interest. Reading should be the fun thing that we do as part of our Chanel, I'm looking at the way you're biting your lips. I'm getting the impression you fall in that category, but
No,
you don't
no,
want to
no,
say
no,
it. So
no.
it's
I
okay.
just know
I'm
of
not gonna
parents
call you
that
out.
do. I know of parents that do. It's not me. No way.
Oh my God. But no, if we do that, what is ultimately going to happen? Children are going to hate to read, they're going to hate to
Mm-hmm.
write, because sometimes we make
Yeah.
writing and penmanship punishment. If you don't do this, I will give you to go and practice your writing. We are associating learning with punishment. And then we wonder why they don't want to do no work, because it's punishment. So now going to school is punishment. So we have to be mindful sometimes of the subliminal messages that we send in the associations that we make. So let me start with mommy Chanel. How was, from a parent's perspective, how was today's discussion for you? I know we kind of went deep and we went broad. So how was today's discussion for you?
Well, there was a lot of tips that, some things that I did not consider. I enjoyed learning
Okay.
about the science, the tips about comprehension and how to relate to the child and allowing them to, give suggestions before I jump in and, be the super mommy and help them answer the questions.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
so
it's
it's
about
definitely,
prompting, not solving. It's about prompting.
yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Miss Mohipad, how was this chat for you? You jumped on our live to contribute to our schooling at home. How was this chat for you?
This was very refreshing. I enjoyed chatting with mommy and with working with you guys. It was really nice, and it's nice to see that we could help you, mommy. That was the goal, to help you, and we're so
Thank
happy
you.
that we could be a part of that.
Yeah. And Miss Harry Prasad, how was it tonight's chat for you?
Well, first, I must say it was really good. This whole system saying online stuff is new to me. So I was really
It's new
excited,
to a lot of
but at the
teachers,
same
Miss.
time,
Yes.
I was a little bit nervous too. So I'm really happy that we had a parent who contributed to a parent's side to share with us on what was some of the challenges. So as educators, we'll know what parents also face at home with and some what goes on during this pandemic
Yes.
time. So it was really
And so,
helpful.
yes. So while it's not part of the focus of the conversation, parents, your takeaway from what Miss Harry Prasad just said is communicate with your teachers as far as you can. Because when your teachers at school understand the struggles you have at home, they're able to better to help the child when they go to school. you know, doing the homework for the child, prompting so much that you might as well have done the homework for the child does not help.
On the
It does not.
project.
It does not help.
Don't forget
And so
about
we
the project.
understand that, yeah, doing the project for the child, no, it's not your project, mommy and daddy. It is the child's project. So we understand that
Yes.
sometimes there's a pressure to perform and you're a pressure to please. But remember, the ultimate focus is the development of the child. And so we want to be able to band together. So I'm just using that point that Ms. Hari Prasad made to really encourage parents when school does reopen, let's make every effort to band together under positivity, to be able to communicate with our school administration, with our school teachers, so that way, when the teachers understand the challenges at home, it informs them to better support in school, and it also informs them to be able to better support you so that you could be a support to your child. So, mommy, miss, and miss, I appreciate you all coming and joining in for this discussion. And parents who looked at the show live and those who would catch the replay, we trust that the information was informative. Just moving to the background for a quick minute. So for everybody, thank you for joining in. This evening, we took time to really break down in a detailed way reading skills development, where we delved into understanding how parents can at home support phonemic awareness, word building, vocabulary development, comprehension skills, and reading fluency. So I hope that these tips that have been provided, you find them practical and helpful, and things that you could do from tonight. Well, it's late, it's almost 10 o'clock. So things you can do from tomorrow or whenever you're looking at this stream. So thank you so much for checking in with us. We wish you a great night. Feel free to message in to us through the Victoria Literacy Center page. We want to know, what topics do you want us to talk about? So even as we've gotten a lot of requests about reading skills, last week we spoke about health and safety in school, where we had Ms. Aisha Carr join in to talk about that health, safety, and wellness. We want to hear from you because this program is all about you. We do this for you as our way as Victoria Literacy Center, as giving back and being able to support parents. So thank you so much for joining in. We wish you a great night. And until next week at 9, we, get the curriculum, start implementing, start practicing, and stay in touch.